Shalom Aleichem, this is Rabbi Kovacs, and for Erev Shabbat Mishpatim, Mishnah Yomi is in chapter 10 of Ketubot, Mishnah Hey, the fifth Mishnah. Misha Haya Nesui Arba Nashim. A man had 4 wives, Vamet, and passed away. Harishona Kodemet Lishnia. The first wife to be married takes precedence over the second one, as we said in the first Mishnah of this chapter. Now, yesterday we had a case where everyone got married on the same day, or there was no real estate, no karka in the estate of the deceased husband. So in those situations, they would divide equally. But the general rule is whoever gets married first gets precedence, just like whoever lent money to the husband first would have precedence over someone who lent money later. So shniya l'shlishi, the second one has precedence to the third, shlishi l'ravit, and the third wife to get married has precedence over the fourth. And when they collect, harishona nishbat l'shniya, the first wife to collect, also the first to be married, makes an oath to the second, again that she has not been prepaid any of the ketuva amount owed to her. Shniya l'shlishi, the second to the third, shlishi l'ravit, and the third to the fourth. Harvit nifrad shelo b'shvua. And the fourth wife takes whatever's left over, if there's enough left over to pay her kesuva, without making an oath to anyone. Ben Nana somer v'chi mivnei shehi acharona niskara. Ben Nana says it doesn't seem fair because she's the last wife to get married, the last wife to collect her ketuva. She should basically profit in the sense that she doesn't have to make any oath. So he says, Af he, even she, lo tipara ella b'shvua. She can only collect through making an oath. And the Gemara explains there could be a case where, say, the third wife collected a field to satisfy the ketuva obligation, and then it turns out maybe the title was wrong, title search was incorrect, that field hadn't belonged to her husband, so then they go and they take that field from the third wife. Then the third wife could actually go after the fourth wife and collect assets for her ketuva. So maybe the fourth one should actually have to make a shvua, because there could be a case where she would have to make a shvua to the other wives. The Mishnah goes on, Hayu yotzot kulan b'yom echad. If they all went out on the same day, meaning they were all married on the same day, kol kodemet lechaverta, the wife that came before in marriage to her fellow wife, afilu sha'achat zochta. Even if she was 1 hour earlier, she gets to collect first when they come to collect their ketuva. V'kach hayu kaitvin b'Yerushalayim sha'ot. And thus, in Yerushalayim, they would actually write the hour on the ketuva and another shtarot, not just the day. The same would apply to a sale or a loan. They would say this loan took place at 10 a.m., and then maybe the next loan was at 11 a.m. So guess what? Even on the same day, the loan that took place at 10 a.m. gets precedence in collection. Obviously, this is not the minhag, because we don't do this in our shtarot. Maybe it's only the in Yerushalayim in previous times. Maybe when we rebuild the temple and everyone has accurate sundials, we'll reinstate this custom. I'm not sure. We're going to ask Eliyahu and Navi. Anyway, the Mishnah concludes here. Hayu kulan yotzei b'sha'acha. They all got married simultaneously. There was a package deal, an extra large chuppah, and somehow they made it work. Ein sham ele moneh holkin b'shava. There's only 100 left over. Then, like we explained yesterday, all the wives would divide it equally. Let's go on to Mishnah Vav. Misha haya nasui shtei nashim. A man was married to 2 wives, and not on the same day. We'll see. Mocher et sadehu. He sold his field. Now, this field was worth enough to cover one of the ketuvot, but not both. And as we know, if a married man sells a field, there's a mortgage, there's a lien to pay the ketuva of his wives. Katva rishona lelokeach. But the first wife wrote a note to the buyer of the field. Din udvarim ein li imach. I have no case, no claim, no words to claim your field. Meaning when she comes to claim her ketuva, she will not take from that field. She'll take only from other assets. So what happens when the husband passes away? Hashniya, the second wife who did not write such a note, motzia melokeach. She can take that field in satisfaction of her ketuva payment from that buyer. The harishona, and the first wife, minashniya, can go and take that field from the second wife, because after all, the first wife has precedence in ketuva collection over the second wife. V'halokeach, but now that buyer who bought the field while the husband was still alive, minarishona, he can then take the field from the first wife, because after all, he's holding a note that the first wife says she will not claim the field from him. The hoseret chalila, and the circle would keep circling. Ad sheyaseh pshara b'neihem, until they make some sort of compromise between them. The Bartanura here points out the word pshara, or compromise, is lashon poshrin. Poshrin means lukewarm. It's not hot, it's not cold, so they're not going to get everything, they're not going to get nothing. They'll sit down together and figure out how to divide this asset. V'chein bal hov, the Mishnah adds, also if there was an indebtedness. So if a man, let's say he's not a married man, he had 2 fields, and these fields were each worth 50 zuz. The Bartanura explains the case like this. He sold these 2 fields to 2 different people, but then he also owed 100 zuz to a creditor, and the creditor writes a note, like the woman did, like the married woman had, that he's not going to make any claims from the second purchaser of that second field. So the creditor can seize the field from the first purchaser in satisfaction of the debt, but then the second purchaser can seize from it's going to go back. It's going to be a circle again until they sit down and make a peshara, a compromise. And finally, the Mishnah adds, v'chen isha balas chov, and so to a woman who is a lender. Now, she's a lender, meaning the husband owes a ketubah. She has a 200 zuz ketubah. The husband has 2 fields. These fields are worth 100 zuz each. So he sold a field to Reuven, and then he sold another field to Shimon. And the wife wrote a note to Shimon, the second buyer, that she will not take this particular field as her ketuvah payment. So when the husband actually passes away, she can take the first field, where there was no note, as her payment. But then the first buyer of that field could take the field from the second buyer, and then the woman can then take that field back from the first buyer, and again, the circle returns until they make a peshara. Sometimes you got to stop trying to lay blame and responsibility, and you've got to sit down with everybody and just compromise. Yashar koach, Shabbat Shalom, and a good Shabbos.